Good evening and welcome. I'm Sheila Balgobin, principal of Simply Improve Health, and I help people to train better and longer and recover more quickly and have improved sleep and enjoy better quality of health using simple plant-based products and simple techniques. This evening, as you may have seen from the announcements I put up earlier in the week, that today is my 21st wedding anniversary, and it just started a train of thought at looking around at people that I know who have been married for a number of years, and to consider what constitutes a good relationship, whether you're married or unmarried partners. There are certain characteristics that seem to be common to all good, long-lasting relationships. And it can be reduced to two words: compromise and compassion. Well, and you think compromise and compassion? Well, the compromise you probably get right away, because if you try to always have the last word and dance the last dance, you're going to be dancing alone, baby, because nobody's going to put up with somebody who never, ever admits to being wrong and never backs down, and is not willing to compromise. So I would think that the first thing that all successful relationships share is the ability to be able to compromise. You know, okay, he didn't take the garbage out right away, but in a couple of hours he did. Okay. It's not according to your time schedule, but it got done. So it's about listening to the other, hearing what they're saying, and not necessarily having to come back with something that's confrontational, but perhaps just try to step back out of your own position, and try to look at it from the other person's point of view. It's not always easy. It's not always what you desire to do, but I think it's necessary in order to be able to live with another person, whether you're married to them or not. I mean, I think of it this way: if you're constantly butting heads, what chance is there for a relationship to develop and flourish? Yes, debate, and healthy debate, and sometimes a bit loud debate is necessary. But if you're not willing to at least climb down a little bit from your stated position, you're never going to get anywhere. You're going to very quickly reach an impasse. The other thing is as I said, compassion. Again, and that comes back to stepping back a little bit from your own position and putting yourself in the other person's shoes, so that someone may have come home from work snapping because they've had a shitty day, and unfortunately, you're the nearest person for them to be able to take it out on. Not that it makes that right, but there are ways that you can try to diffuse that. And the way you can diffuse that is with another C: conversation. Communicate, talk to each other, even if it's a little bit loud sometimes. Talk to each other. There's nothing worse that things are simmering and boiling under the surface, and then something triggers a reaction in one or the other partner, and bam, you're in full-flown knockdown, drag-out fights over something that's really unimportant, because you're not addressing what's really bothering you. So it's better to diffuse the situation before it even happens by having a conversation. Now, I get you ladies and men, that conversation can be difficult to undertake because one or the other partner is hyper reactive and will jump on the other person before they even have a chance to explain themselves. And that's why I said if necessary, take a deep breath, count to 10, go get a cup of tea, calm down, and then come back and try and have a conversation. Now, there are instances where conversation is just not possible. Either one person or the other is not willing to compromise, not willing to back down, not willing to listen to what the other person has to say. And that's quite difficult. And the only thing you can do is to try to leave the situation alone and come back to it when the two of you are less volatile in your emotions. But there comes a point sometimes where that's not, even having a cooling off period is not possible. And then you have to consider whether you need to work on the relationship or to let it go. And sometimes you have to let it go. But for those who are willing to undertake what is the hardest job on the planet, no, I say the second hardest job on the planet. The first hardest job on the planet is raising children, because they don't come with instructions tattooed on their butts. But it's just as difficult joining your life with someone who's basically a stranger, however long you may have known them. Living with them on a day-to-day basis is a different thing, which is why you see all of these big stars and actors and singers and whatnot. They're serial marriage partners, because they fall in love with this image that they've created in their mind, or that's gotten created in the character on screen, and get carried away with it, and base their feelings on basically thin air, something that's not real. So when they start to see the warts on each other's butts and reality sets in, when you got to pay the bills and run to do the school run and buy the groceries and all the rest of it, the illusion evaporates, and what you're left with is somebody you don't really know and may not particularly like. And that brings me to my next point as to what constitutes a successful relationship. You should be friends. You should be able to talk to each other all the time, no matter what the circumstances. You should be good enough friends and have good enough understanding with one another and of one another to be able to simply, I mean, it's just, it seems to be so elementary that to be compassionate, to give a person a chance to speak, to be able to just simply allow them their space and have mutual respect for one another. That's the key, really, is to be friends and to have mutual respect. But to get respect, you have to give it. It's a two-way street. You can't just assume that because you pay the bills, or because you take care of the kids in the home, that that automatically grants you respect. I mean, it should, but respect is earned. It's not just given. So that if you're treating your partner or spouse in a way that's respectful, and really tries to see their point of view, there's less potential for friction and trouble. And that's not to say that life is going to be perfect. No, things happen. Life gets in the way. Children interrupt you when you're having a good time. Life happens. But if you're willing at least to and are flexible enough to be able to roll with the punches, you'll be able to survive. And I mean, the thing is, yes, it's good to be friends with your partner or spouse, but it's also important that you keep growing and developing yourself. Now, someone who sent me a message about this live said that, well, express the feeling that, well, what happens when the other person is seems to be stuck in a particular place, and you're kind of progressing and growing on your path, and they just seem to be stuck. Well, one thing is, again, compassion. Their journey is not your journey. Your journey is not theirs. And therefore, you need to be able to respect wherever they are, though that can be difficult at times, I admit. You know, when people are kind of on their own particular journeys and they're not particularly in sync with one another, it does cause friction. But again, the art of compromise and compassion is essential. The only way you're going to make it through the minefields of relationships is to be willing to be able to step back and see another person's point of view, and to have some compassion. Hola, Valentina, boa te ver, viu? So there's whether you're talking about relationships of married partners, unmarried partners, or even relationships between parents and children, all relationships should be based on mutual respect and compromise and compassion. Now, it's easy for us to be compassionate about, oh, poor so-and-so out there. But it's much more difficult to be compassionate with yourself, number one, and the people closest to you, because we try, I suppose, try to hold them to a higher standard, and we pick at them that much more. Yes, there's going to be things about your partner or spouse that are going to get on your last nerves, and you want to strangle them, and they probably want to strangle you too. Whether it be the tube of toothpaste that they squeeze from the middle, or leaving one drop of milk in the bottle in the fridge. I mean, everybody has little habits and idiosyncrasies and little crazy things that they do that will work your nerves. That's just the way it is. But again, it's about, you have to accept the whole package. How do you know good if you don't have bad? How do you know what up is if you don't know what down is? We live in a world of duality, this or that. But life is this and that. Life is, yeah, my husband's a great dancer. He can cook, kiss, and dance, and it's great. I love it. Every man in my life I've ever known has had to cook, kiss, and dance. And if they can sing, that's even better. But my point being is, yes, we have interests in common, things that we enjoy together, but we also need to have that time and space to do our own thing, if only to have something to talk about that's different from the usual routine of, work, school, home, etc. What's for dinner? So it's keeping yourself refreshed mentally and physically, getting out there and having your own interests and hobbies and things. And by the same token, allowing them to have their particular hobbies and interests, but make sure out of all of the busyness and things that are going on, that you make time to spend with each other. I mean, some marriages work very well where, they live on opposite sides of the planet. They only see each other maybe a couple of times a year, and they love it. If that works for you, beautiful. But most people like to have someone to hand a bit more often than that. And that's where you're going to have to learn that it's not always going to be your way. You're going to have to compromise. So, I mean, if to recapitulate, it's really simple. Good relationships, however they're formulated, need to be based on mutual respect. They needs to be based on compassion for oneself and your partner. It needs to be to develop the art of compromise. You can't dance every dance. It can't have the last word all the time. There has to be give and take. Sometimes the pressure of life will mean that one person may be contributing a bit more than the other for a time. You know, it may be instead of 50-50, maybe 70-30, 80-20. Sometimes, in real dire situations, it may be one person really putting in 100% because the other person cannot or will not. But even so, that should not be an ongoing situation. There should be balance in the relationship in terms of time together, time apart, in terms of how you contribute. You may contribute in different ways, but it should be in ways that both partners feel is an equitable way. And so I would put that to you as you look at your own relationships, whether you're married or just in a civil partnership, to think about that relationship and how is it doing? Do it a little bit of a health check. Is it a partnership where you're feeling fulfilled, that you're both learning and growing together, even though you're learning and growing in different ways, but are you both learning and growing together and taking into account that learning and growth that the both of you are doing? Are you willing to be able to step out of your own position and perhaps step into the other person's shoes for a moment? Are you willing to compromise when every now and then, just to not just to keep the peace, not just to be silent and grumble under your breath, but to honestly try to smooth relationships and to find a balance between the two of you so that you can live more happily together. It is not always easy. It's not even fun sometimes. And sometimes you may even hate your partner or feel that you do. That happens, especially when you're giving childbirth. Ladies, I've heard some ladies call their partners everything but a child of God when they were delivering their children. But that doesn't mean that they didn't love them. So as you go through the days and weeks to come, do a regular health check of your relationships and see whether you're able to get the best out of it by giving your best to it and expecting and demanding the best from your partner. You should be looking to give of your best to each other. And if you're not willing or able to do that, then you seriously need to sit down and think about why and whether that there's something you can do about it or whether it's time to call it a day. And sometimes that is the proper thing to do, but only you can decide that. I thank you for listening and watching this evening. I hope you found it of use. If you did, leave me a comment or drop me an emoji of some love hearts, some thumbs up, whatever feels appropriate. If you disagree with what I've said, feel free to do so and leave your comments. I'm always willing to entertain a debate. And now I'm going to enjoy the rest of my anniversary. There's some cake and ice cream. My husband's baked a beautiful cake, and we're going to have some ice cream with it. Thanks so much again. Have a lovely, lovely evening and a great week next week. And I'll see you this coming Thursday when I talk about flower essences during International Essence Awareness Week. Take care. Thanks for watching and have a lovely night. Bye-bye.